So I am going to talk about how messy the world is and how instead of trying to force order it, trying to get into an illusion of order and certainty, how we should embrace it. So yeah, that's basically my talk. So yeah, so I'm gonna um, talk about in defense of certainty, and hopefully by the end of the talk, I have convinced you why certainty is a good thing, something we should embrace, rather than a negative thing we should get rid of. Uh, so it's from, as far going back as far back as history, the human writing. We've always, the strive, especially in the Western tradition, the strive has always been for some sort of order, for trying to find some equilibrium, some similar patterns. It gives us a sense of control, and that knowledge, in a sense, lets us make predictions about the future. Descartes is a really interesting figure, a towering figure in this regard. He gave us the foundations for knowledge, especially in the Western tradition. He was so concerned about a lot of things that could lead us, that we cannot be certain about, that could trick us. He wanted to establish an absolutely certain ground for truths. He, step by step, through in his meditation, he got rid of all the things that could be doubted. So it started with the senses. You think you are seeing things, you think your senses are giving you accurate information, but it could be wrong. You see this pencil in a glass here. From your perception, as far as your eyes go, it looks like it's bent, but actually the pencil is not bent in reality. And then you could be thinking that you are sitting here attending a conference, listening to me, talking to me, but in fact you could be dreaming. It could all be an illusion, or an evil demon could be deceiving you into thinking you are sitting here listening to a talk. The modern version of that is the Matrix. So all of that goes into the bin for Descartes, because if it can be doubted in the slightest bit, it's not a good foundation for knowledge. So what he wanted to establish was some fixity, some absolute certainty that gives us good grounds. So that thinking, Descartes was and still is so fundamental. That thinking has remained in a lot of Western science, Western philosophy, even the technologies we are developing these days. This is another quote from Prigogine and Strangers. It's a brilliant book. I recommend you read it if you haven't already. So they emphasize how the sciences tend to look for stability, uniformity, order. That lets us quantify, measure, and then maybe predict. But in reality, even though that's what we would like, the reality is messy. Things cannot be quantified. They are interrelated. They are ambiguous. It's difficult to draw boundaries, and it goes on. Another name dropping, I know you mentioned him yesterday, is Foucault, the way he emphasizes. So at the heart of the sciences is this strive to really order things and to classify. And as I'll come back to it in a bit later, we might think, drawing boundaries or classifications is a neutral, objective, banal thing. But with the power to classify also comes the power to include and exclude, the power to say where the hierarchies lie. So it's a power relation. It's not just a simple classification task. And if we look at the etymology of science itself, it comes from the root word of ski, which means to cut, to split, or to divide. And all this cutting and dividing and drawing boundaries and trying to find order and certainty is not a bad thing, but except we don't zoom out and look at the whole picture at the end of the day. We are so preoccupied in dividing everything and to the tiniest components, we forgot why we are doing it. We forgot to zoom out and say, what does this little component have to do to the whole image, to the whole picture? So one of the things that strikes me is the way, are there any neuroscientists here? No, okay. But I have neuroscientists friends, so they admit to this. So it's the way they get down to the very fine-grained details of neurons and activations and atoms. And all their experiments really looking at the proteins that constitutes each atom and a neuron. They're almost the idea that all the focus on those neurons and atoms and proteins is actually to construct some coherent image of cognition. That image is lost in the details. So my point is, division by itself may not be such a bad idea, but it kind of distracts us from zooming out and looking at the whole picture. So what we have inherited from this very Western kind of individualistic, certainty-based philosophy and science, and also now the way we develop technologies is, in place of messy, ambiguous, and continually changing reality, we have tried to replace it with fixity. We try to pin things down, and then if you stop them from moving, you can be certain, and you can have accurate measure. And we are so obsessed with division and separation. And another aspect that gets also lost is this view kind of gives us the illusion that whatever is being done is done from the view from nowhere. It's like there is no perspective, or it's like there is no actual person doing the division or doing the separation. But the fact is far from it. No matter how objective our sciences are, there is always a person, and with the person comes a certain perspective, a certain background, a certain culture. And however, even the kind of questions you ask, the kind of questions we deem worthy, are dependent on the culture and the context and the history we come from. But this illusion of the view from nowhere tricks us into thinking our backgrounds, our histories, our cultures don't really have much input into it. So von Foster puts it really beautifully here. Objectivity is the subject's delusion that observing can be done without him. Invoking objectivity is abrogating responsibility, hence its popularity. I think that's really, really beautiful. So also another great biologist, I think, Umberto Maturana, without the observer, there is nothing. Everything comes through the lens of the observer. So as I mentioned earlier, it's all this strive for fixity, strive for categorization and finding similar patterns, and then making some sort of generalizations and predictions is, I notice it a lot in the technologies that are really rapidly being developed, whether it's facial recognition systems, whether it's some tools that are supposed to predict theft before it happens. So here is one example. This came out very recently. So the idea is this predictive system is supposed to look at a person's face, assess their mood, and also look at their previous history, and then deem whether they are likely to shoplift or not, and the idea is to stop them before they do. And this is way going beyond the aspiration for certainty. This is where it goes really to a dangerous state, where there is no absolute knowledge, or we cannot have absolute knowledge about a person's, a human's state, as I will explain in a bit. So, is absolute certainty attainable? And even if it's attainable, is it desirable? So I work with non-Western traditions. In my own PhD, I look at the Ubuntu South African philosophy. I look at dialogical perspectives from the Russian tradition and a lot of Eastern philosophy. So for me, the Western tradition really stands out in its striving for order and certainty or an individuality, whereas the others have so much in common because the emphasis is the collective. So let's look at Ubuntu. So when I talk about Ubuntu, it's not the operating system, so it's the South African philosophy or the general African philosophy. That was supposed to be a joke, but I didn't do it well. So remember Descartes' deduction that the only thing he can be sure of was his cogito, his own existence, because even if he can doubt his senses, even if he can doubt that, he can rule out that it might be an evil demon deceiving him, he can still be sure that there is something doing the doubting. There is something that's doing the thinking, that's himself. That's the only thing he could be sure about, he could be certain about, right? So the Ubuntu philosophy takes a really an extremely opposite stance in an extremely opposite direction. There is no me. I don't exist independent of my community. I don't exist independent of people around me. I exist because I exist with people around me. So a person is a person through other persons. So you cannot take the person out of their community or their living system, their ecosystem, and consider them a person, because their interrelationships, their codependence is what makes them who they are. And so in the Western tradition, you see selfhood as something you have or you don't. It's like an all or nothing, none thing. So whereas for the Ubuntu tradition, selfhood is something that you develop over time, something that changes, something that as you interact, something that evolves. So for example, say a baby, babies are considered not to have, it's called ina, which translates to selfhood. You don't have a self when you are born. You develop it over time. So this is a dramatic example, but so when say for example a little baby dies, I remember this is from back my childhood. It's not, there is here, whether it's a little baby or a grown-up person, the suffering or the burial ceremony is really almost the same, and the pain is felt equally. Whereas in the culture I grew up, for example, I remember people when little children die, I remember there wouldn't be a huge deal, there wouldn't be a funeral, people would just go and bury the body because it's not considered as developed. It's not, some people might find this a bit dramatic, but just to illustrate the fact that it's not an all or nothing, it's something you gradually develop with interaction with other people. So at the heart is really, really other people. That's what makes you who you are. Also, the dialogical perspective also emphasizes relationship. So you can never, the person is never self-contained. We are always relying on other people, intentionally or non-intentionally. We can never sustain ourselves. We need continual stimulation. We need continual activity. And anything we say, everything is interconnected. Anything we do and say is in response to something. Take, for example, Twitter. When you tweet something, it's usually in response of something, even if it's a subtweet, or it's in anticipation of a response, right? So you always have other people, other interactions in mind. So without us, to demonstrate the emphasis, the importance of other people, take solitary confinement, for example. There is lots of research that demonstrates people who are kept in solitary confinements for long enough, they suffer from delusion, they suffer from lack of sense of time, they have no concept of the future and the past, and the longer that goes on, they gradually lose their own sense of self. So as Bakhtin put it beautifully, the way I formulate who I am, or the way I make a coherent sense of myself, is by talking to other people, by communicating to other people. It's looking through the screen of the other souls that I vivify my exterior. So even things that we think are so private, in the back of our mind, are still meshed up with anticipations, with other people's thoughts. Another factor that makes humans really unpredictable and kind of generalizable is the fact that we are multivalent. So when I'm here talking to you, I take on some sort of, there's norms and expectations as to what a conference speaker should speak. When I'm out talking to you at the coffee area, then I'm slightly different. I behave slightly differently. When I'm talking to my PhD advisor, there is a slightly different expectations and norms. When I'm out with my friends and family, I take on different actions and different behaviors. So we cannot really fix a person down and say, Abeba is this or that, because who I am depends on my context. So I was so worried because I don't have software background. When I came to this conference, I was so worried my talk wouldn't really fit here. But I attended some of the talks yesterday, and I was really happily surprised that a lot of the stuff that people are talking about is actually really in the same line. So I took this slide from Samir's talk. So I borrowed some slides, so I have integrated them into my own talk. See, everything is connected. So this is from Samir, and I really liked the way he drew the different distinctions between what he thought as humans and machines. On the human side, even though it's not explicitly stated, you can see the messiness, the ambiguity. We make guesses, we are forgiving, we assume from context, and we are fluid, right? Whereas machines are not. Also, another slide that really struck me was Kelvin Hennis. I don't think he's here. So I loved this phrase, discrete world of computers with fluid world of human affairs. So human affairs is fluid, continually moving. And he emphasized the fact that meaning is always negotiated. There is not just one truth with capital T, but we negotiate it continually. So going back to certainty, it's not only unattainable, but it also stands at the opposite end of spontaneity and creativity. So when we are striving for certainty and when we are emphasizing stability and predictability, we try to map everything out. We try to figure out every move, or all the moves, every step. That means that leaves no room for unexpected actions, for spontaneity, for creativity, which are really essential characters of what makes us who we are. And Alicia Herrero is also a great person. Read her if you can. So the price we pay for potential of true novelty and creativity is uncertainty. Uncertainty in its form is a negative word. It should not be. And a universe in which certainty is possible must exclude novelty and individuation. So it's really, I cannot emphasize enough how we cannot take something out of the context and think, we cannot simplify something and think we have captured the whole complexity. And humans are really complex systems. So when we try to pick up anything by itself, we find it attached to everything in the universe. Because everything is connected. This was from Alberto's slide. If you have attended his keynote last night, I saw this and said, I must have that. It so captures what I wanted to say, but in an image. So, going back to the technological developments that are really rapidly emerging. So, I'm a cognitive science student, so a lot of my affair is with humans, with how we think, with how our embeddedness in culture, in history, influence us and shapes us. So as far as humans and technology go, when we make a statement or when we try to develop some sort of technology, whether it's voice recognition, whether it's even maps, whether it is some sort of natural language processing system that simplifies categories for us, we are dealing with humans. And when we are developing tools and when we are coming up ways to categorize and to define people, we are simplifying these complexities. We are mathematizing, and we are formalizing a lot of unquantifiable characteristics. And with all this simplification, we might have great technology, but we also have disadvantages. We also have things going wrong. We also have unanticipated, really horrible consequences. And one of them is, this was from Ulrika's talk yesterday. Thank you. So this one example is Amazon's hiring algorithm. So the idea was that Amazon decided they are going to simplify their hiring process, so they developed this algorithm where the input is the last 10 years of people that were successfully hired in the company. So based on the input, they wanted to see what successful candidates would look like. So what the algorithm did was, because in the past, because all their successful candidates were mostly male, any associations with women or even words such as captain of a ladies club or anything, they were seen as negative consequences. So women who have words to do with women were systematically filtered out of the system. So Amazon realized and they got rid of the algorithm. So this is one of the negative consequences. So Amazon took action, but what really worries me is that a great deal of organizations and companies are using some sort of algorithmic systems to ease up their hiring processes. And in the process, a lot of people who don't fit some sort of stereotypical categories or who don't qualify as successful based on what has happened in the past are being discriminated against. Here are a few more examples. Anybody seen this image? Hands up if you have. Okay, this was a huge scandal when it came out. So when we develop technology that says, this is what a human looks like, this is what an aeroplane, or this is what cars look like. So our idea, our image of a human, if it doesn't represent all humans, what we end up is misclassifying people that don't qualify as what the tech people have decided as human. We end up classifying them as non-human, which is really degrading. Another really big example, hands up if you've seen this, if you are familiar with this. Okay, this was also, I think a year or 2 years ago, another big scandal. It's a recidivism algorithm that was developed by a company called Northponte, I think, Compass. And what the idea was, they would develop this machine that will decide for them whether the likelihood of someone recommitting or reoffending after they were released from prison. And after so much back and forth and so much legal disputes, they gave open access to all about how the algorithm works and about the data they used. And journalist Agwin, I think, she led this project, and they discovered that the system is really highly biased against Black people. And it's since been discontinued, but that doesn't mean there aren't similar systems still currently working. Here are just a few I threw in. So whether it is in skin detecting in pedestrians, so this is the self-driving cars. It's a research that came out very recently. Apparently, they cannot detect darker skin tones as much as they would detect lighter skin tones. So no matter what sphere, social, economical, financial sphere, where there is people concerned, any predictive system we are developing is very likely to be disadvantaging or ignoring existence of some groups of people altogether. So, as I said, when attempts to quantify and to measure and to develop tools are made, the people that are usually affected are the people who we have these divisions, we have categories, we have definitions of what a woman is, what a productive worker is, what a criminality looks like. People who don't, it's people who are it's people at the lowest of lowest, society's most vulnerable, that are usually affected, that suffer the consequences of these technologies. And I took this tweet because I thought it said what I wanted to say, but much better. Sarah May, she's brilliant. Follow her on Twitter if you don't already. So the idea is any technology we develop, always has negative consequences. And this is a long trade that went on and on and on, and people tried to challenge her by finding some sort of technology that could be neutral, at least, if not disadvantaging some other people. But there actually is none. There is no technology development that doesn't disempower, that doesn't impact people's lives. And the people whose lives are most impacted are people that are the least capable of defending themselves, the people that are disfranchised, the people that I took this slide from Romeo's talk yesterday. So he talked about social capital and how we form images and traits of certain people fitting a certain category, but people who, as we form those images of people fitting this category or that category, some people, if you don't fit the image of a white male, if you are in between, or if you are seen as not neatly being able to categorize here or there, you are seen as a deviant from the norm. And it's the deviants that are usually punished for not fitting in a certain category. So when a lot of these scandals come out, there is usually an outcry and people try to come up with solutions. People try to find ways to anticipate another disastrous consequence that could arise from the tech that's currently being developed. But a lot of the solutions end up being a purely technical solution, such as debiasing your data set, or something like that. But I think when we are dealing with human beings, which are really interconnected, interlinked, and inherently existing in a web of relations that cannot be neatly categorized, a technical solution is just not sufficient. For me, it shows blindness to complexities, and technical solution gives you the illusion that you are solving the problem. So it actually does more harm than any good. So, and remember, without the observer, there is nothing. Anything, any tech we develop is through a lens of someone, some perspective from a certain social class, from certain categories. So we need to then acknowledge that it's our responsibility. We are as responsible for the tools we build, because the tools we build don't exist in a vacuum. So things like, I'm just an engineer is just simply not acceptable. Hands up if you've heard of this, I'm just an engineer. Okay, that's not bad. So one of the guys who worked on a recidivism algorithm presented, there was two of them, but one of them presented their work at UCLA. So they went through how beautiful their classifier system is and how accurate it is and all that. And someone from the audience pointed out, but what about the ethical side? What kind of negative consequences do you anticipate? And the guy was like, I don't know, I'm just an engineer. So that is an absolute no, because we are responsible for the tools we build, we also have to anticipate and we have to take responsibility. One image is not showing, but okay. So yeah, this goes back to the idea of certainty, the idea that we have the final answer that prevents us from asking questions, that prevents us from seeing ourselves as responsible. So yeah, I want to change your reservation for your flight, but the computer said no. So we should just not settle for these kind of answers. Another really, I'm a big fan of Karen Barad again. So reality is segmented out of the process of making the world intelligible through certain practices and not others. Therefore, we are not only responsible for the knowledge that we seek, but in part for what exists. So I'm going back again to the face recognition system, or the face recognition system. When we are defining what a female face, what a male face looks like, we are in part creating a reality and shaping the social consciousness. So we are responsible for the knowledge that we produce. So that means any model of the world we construct necessarily has an ethical dimension, because we are inherently limited, because we can only see things from our perspective. And as we saw with the hiring algorithms, with the tone detecting, the self-driving cars, when we are responsible for those, we are in a sense responsible for making some identities invisible. Some jobs are lost, some jobs are made through the tools we develop. So even if it's not directly, even if it's just indirectly, we are somewhat responsible. And there is no neutral or objective technology, as I said at the beginning. This is a really simple sentiment classifier. People use it for movie reviews or anything. It's not very accurate, but it gives you an idea of whether a sentiment, a review for a movie is generally good or bad. So the idea is it's just neutral, it's simple, but actually no, because I have a link if you want to look at this. Because words by themselves, because they are inherently linked to our own perception, to the culture that constructs and embeds them, the simple classifiers we thought are neutral ends up being discriminatory against certain groups over others. Even names, like my name is Emily, is rated as much more positive, a positive sentiment compared to my name is Shanika. So even if we haven't inputted, say, race or names as a variable, as important factors, we end up with really disastrous and discriminatory tools. So everybody wants to solve problems. We all want to have a better world. If technical solutions are not the problem, what do we do? So for me personally, it's really important to ask meaningful questions. So before we develop some tools, we should stop and ask, is this tool necessary? Can we do without it? Some tools should never exist in the first place, for example. So this is a machine learning system that predicts sexual orientation. Like, why do you want to know someone's sexual orientation? What does it do? Another one, this one, the gaydar research by Michael Klonsky and his colleague. Hands up if you've heard of it. Okay, so his idea was his algorithm can tell whether someone is gay or not by looking at their image. The guy is also tied to the Cambridge Analytica. Yeah, so it's like these kind of tools have much more potential for damage than to do any good. So why do you want to build them in the first place? In places, for example, like Ethiopia, where I'm from, being homosexual is seen as illegal, so it's a crime. So even if we assume the tool works, which I doubt it would, it does, what you end up is putting some people in danger, some already vulnerable people in danger. So again, I link this back to certainties. It's this certainty, the strive for order, the strive for generalization and prediction. That's underneath and at the root of all this. So I'll just read the von Foster quote. The idea of certainty of the absolute that is supposed to render stability is a dangerous thing. It robs human beings of their responsibility for their perspective on things. So my conclusion, my thinking, absolute certainty is not only unattainable, but it's dangerous, and it's at the root of a lot of our mentality, at the root of our thinking. It's our attempt to contain messy, continually changing reality into something fixable, into something that's standalone. Furthermore, it blinds us from asking questions. It blinds us from asking our responsibilities. We are blind that our actions, the tools we are developing, end up, excluding some people or erasing their existence altogether to some other people. So I tried as I was writing my talk, I was like, okay, I can complain about people trying to hold on to certainty and getting into an illusion that that's possible. But also, I can also point out how that is not just a naive illusion, but also it's a dangerous thing. But what then do we do? What is the take-home message? And I really struggled to find really good take-home messages, but this is what I try to come up. So it's really not about the right answers. So if debiasing your data set is not the right answer, what is then? It's about, for me, it's about asking meaningful questions. It's about asking, okay, how can we not, it's about asking, do we actually need this thing in the first place? It's also actually, how do we fail every time to simplify, every time to take something out of its context and trying to generalize about it? So if that's causing the trouble, how do we go back and account for the complexities, for the embeddedness, for this really messy reality? So for me, in place of final answer, there is, as long as I'm living, there is no final me. I'm continually changing. So are you, everybody. So the idea of trying to fix someone is likely to fail. So instead of final fixed aspiration answers, we have to leave everything partially open. So that partial openness, yes, it leaves a little bit of uncertainty, which is not bad, but that partial openness allows us to revise our claims, to reiterate our thinking, and to continually negotiate what we mean by, a face, or what we mean by what a crime is, or what we mean by, truths. So partial openness is really important for continual negotiation. So in place of certainty, I say we embrace indeterminability and unfinalizability. That's it, I think. Thank you. something I'm very familiar with, so I'm sorry I can't comment on that. I'm more on the human side.
Question. For an IOU, I think there is a link between this need for certainty that you are describing with the need for capitalism to measure everything.
Yes.
To sell, we need to
Yes.
profit, we need
Yes.
to know what the price of everything, including human activities. And
Yes.
more and more human activities more than only natural goods. So because of that, we are in a situation where we want to measure everything, we want to know the price of everything, we want to be able to exchange everything. And yes, it leads to this kind
Yes,
of
I agree.
master of the world. And Descartes is part of the beginning of the capitalism and the way that we want to master the earth, master the nature and everything in a small chunk that we are able to sell and buy.
Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree with you. Can we take one more or no?
It's a short one.
We take it out?
Very short. Short.
Okay.
You posted, some of your quotes came from people I'm fans of, like